All right, well, again, we're talking about hearing God in our business. And one of my favorite approaches to this is getting God's narrative on situations that we're facing and how we can not live out a reaction, but we're living out a response to what he's saying and doing. Great words. Let me give you some application. I had a client who is about to fire one of his executives, and I've been working with him for a couple months, and we're talking through it, and it's a high level executive, and it was a challenge for him, and so he was walking through why he needed to let this man go, and so we talked through the practicals, and of course my process is whenever I'm hearing something from somebody, I'm trying to hear Holy Spirit, Lord, is that right? Is that true? Lord, what are you saying about this thing? Not just say, oh, yep, that makes sense, let's just do it, but I want to be aware of what God is saying in the midst of it as well. Just a little insight behind the curtains of how I process as I'm listening to other people share things to me. I'm internally asking Holy Spirit, what are you saying? What's true? Where's the life on it? Going back to the story, so as this CEO is telling me about letting go of this executive, I said, I want to ask you to do something. I want to get God's narrative on this because I know you're fearful and you're a little challenged. And part of the reason why I was challenged and a little nervous about it is because this man has been with him for 20 years. But he's also his brother-in-law. That's a big deal. And so there's this tension of like, I want to do the right thing and I don't know if it's going to go well. And it's all the potential ramifications are there on the table. And I said, let's just get God's narrative. What is God saying about the situation? Because we can live in reaction to the possibilities of things that could happen, or we can get God's perspective on things and it changes our whole paradigm of it. And so we just stopped and said, Lord, is he supposed to let this man go? And he heard the Lord say, yes. Okay, so now ask the Lord why. And all of a sudden he gets this picture, this image of if this man, this executive would stay in the company, he would actually die internally. But letting him go is actually going to release him to the purpose of what God has for him. And all of a sudden the CEO is like, oh my goodness, I'm actually doing what God has asked me to do. I mean, I'm being a part of what God's doing. I'm not just firing the guy. I'm actually releasing him to what God has for him. Why I'm telling you that story is many times we hear of a negative thing, a lawsuit. We hear about funding being lost. We hear about a person a client wants to cancel, or we find out that this whole initiative that we're going looks like it's going to go downhill. I want to challenge you and encourage you. One way to hear God is getting his perspective, his narrative of the situation, and not living in reaction to the news, but living in response to his perspective. Because when we do that, it changes our beliefs, our faith, our expectation, and our ability to hear with clarity. Listen to me. You've got to catch this. This is huge about hearing God and getting his perspective, his narrative over it. Because if we hear his narrative, we're now not reacting to the possibilities. We're responding to what he's saying to doing. It's like,